Time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world. I'm joined once again by Clément Bonnereau. Hi, Clément. We begin with looking at the U.S.'s Senate voting nearly unanimously to impose new sanctions against Russia. This coming amid the ongoing investigation of whether Russia meddled in the 2016 election.
That's right, and the New York Times this morning calls it a timely and appropriate tool for punishing Russia for allegedly trying to sway the election. The newspaper, however, reminds us that Donald Trump has sent mixed messages about what comes next. It's now up to the president to sign the sanctions into law, but Trump's team hinted that he could veto the bill, the official reason being to push for tougher sanctions. The New York Times, however, says that Congress should not hesitate to override him if that was the case.
And meanwhile, Trump continues to face criticism over his proposal to bar transgender individuals from serving in the U.S. military. This despite military officials saying there would be no change to the government's policy.
That's right. And The Guardian is particularly critical of the US president this morning in its editorial, calling Trump's ban cruel and depressing. Interestingly, The Guardian also points out that the proposed ban could be seen as a deliberate act of distraction. This as the president's team faces accusations of collusion with Russia during the 2016 presidential campaign. And I've got this cartoon here which illustrates this point that Trump has picked an easy target to protect himself and further his own agenda. The caption reads, "I needed to throw somebody under the bus to distract from all the bad media narratives. I thought you'd be happy I picked the least popular of you."
Well, moving on now to Venezuela, where Nicolas Maduro's government is pressing ahead with a plan to change the constitution. This despite weeks, months really, of mobilizing hundreds of thousands of people in protest.
That's right, and the Washington Post calls it a coup against the people. Venezuelans are voting this Sunday to elect a new constituent assembly, which will have the power to overrule all other bodies, including the country's National Assembly, which is currently controlled by the opposition. The Washington Post is very critical, saying the government is trying to dismantle what remains of the country's democratic institutions to establish a regime resembling that of Cuba's. The newspaper concludes saying that the US should react decisively to punish Venezuela's corrupt rulers and help its long-suffering people.
And what are the Venezuelan papers saying?
Well, the Venezuelan press is divided, unsurprisingly. Opposition daily El Nacional says the vote is illegal and goes against the interest of Venezuelans. But no matter what the outcome of the vote is on Sunday, the opposition will not give up. You can see the headline here, Vamos a seguir, we will continue. Últimas Noticias disagrees and argues in a very pro-government piece that Nicolas Maduro and his government will not bow to pressure. The new constitution, the paper writes, will pave the way for a better, more democratic Venezuela, one that takes its fate into its own hands and breaks free from American imperialism.
And next up, we move to Senegal, which will also have a vote this Sunday, but this for the legislative parliamentary election.
That's right, and tensions are running high in the country. Catholic daily La Croix reports the election has turned into a referendum on the president, Macky Sall, who's been accused of stirring up violence during the campaign. There have been violent clashes between supporters of the president, supporters of the former president, Abdoulaye Wade, and supporters of Khalifa Sall, the mayor of Dakar, who was arrested in March on charges of corruption.
And the campaign has been marred by allegations of fraud.
That's right. There's been a delay in the introduction of new biometric identity cards, which are meant to be used as voting cards. As Jeune Afrique reports, anyone with a valid ID will be able to vote in the election. But members of the opposition fear that this will lead to fraud and confusion at the polls.
And we'll be covering that election, of course, on France 24. Time now to end, though, on a lighter note. South Korea has a new president, a new first lady, and now also a first dog.
That's right. It was one of President Moon Jae-in's campaign promises to adopt a dog from an animal shelter. The dog was rescued by an animal rights group campaigning against the consumption of dog meat in Asia. And President Moon's adoption of Tory, that's the dog's name, is seen as sending a strong message against the trade. And one last fun fact for you, Will. Last week, the Minority Justice Party offered President Moon a luxury dog bed, but insisted that the gift should not be seen as a bribe since it was for the dog and not for the president himself.
Okay, so not a presidential favor, more of a first dog favor.
That's right.
Clément Bonnereau with a roundup of what's making international headlines.